My guest today on the show is Elizabeth Brasch. She's the Executive Vice President of Marketing at Mellow Mushroom. Elizabeth, thanks for joining me.
Thanks so much. I'm excited to be here.
So, for those of us that don't know Mellow Mushroom, haven't experienced the brand, just give us a bit of an understanding about why this place is so unique and so special and why, I mean, you've been there for over a decade now. There must be something unique and special.
Yeah. I've spent significant time here, so I must like it, right?
Yeah.
Um, so Mellow Mushroom we're a casual dining pizza focused restaurant. Founded in Atlanta, Georgia. We actually last year had our 50th anniversary. So we're a brand certainly rich with history. Today we have a little over of 160 units in the US, primarily based in the Southeast. And we're, of course, very focused on pizza, and we're really known for our amazing, very unique crust. If you've ever had mellow mushroom pizza, the crust is really special and it's
Really?
like no other. But we have a full menu, a, a bunch of other really great offerings, appetizers, salads, burgers, the list goes on. And we have full bars in the majority of our restaurants as well.
Wow. 160 units, you said?
Yeah, 166 to be exact, a little over
Wow.
160. Mhm.
And your journey as a marketer and a marketing leader, what's sort of the high level summary of where it started and how it went and how you are now? Give us the picture of that.
Let's see. So I've worked in talking about my experience at Mellow Mushroom, because of course I've spent considerable time here at this point. My journey, formally speaking, started now 11 years ago. And I began in the marketing or brand development department as a coordinator. I was working on social media scheduling and helping with some marketing efforts for new store openings and our retail program. So it started as a coordinator position and kind of very boots on the ground, tactical, if you will. Um, Prior to that, I had done several different summer internships with the organization. So I'd actually worked in operations for a brief period of time, but doing the operational aspect of new store openings. And believe it or not, my very first job, if you want to go like way
Yeah.
back in history, my very first job I ever had at the company was I actually worked in the production commissary.
What?
Um, so, yep, crazy to believe. So I've, like I said, I know the organization well. I've worked on many different aspects of the business. The first job I ever had was working in the commissary, and that was so. If you're not familiar necessarily, like I said, our dough is very special and unique to the brand, and so we have a special commissary where we make this dough made
Right.
out of five great ingredients, and so we're doing that in house ourselves. So I actually worked in that facility that was making that dough, and this is now the technology is much more advanced
Yeah.
than it was 16, 17 years ago when I did this, but at the time the dough balls were individually saran wrapped before they were distributed to stores. So I think I can safely say that during that summer, I probably wrapped thousands of individual dough
Now
balls.
there's a machine.
Yep. And I worked on making the pizza sauce too, which at that time we had a woman, I remember her so well. She's since retired, but her name was Geraldine, and she worked for the company for over 30 years. And she was the person that made the pizza sauce. So I learned how to make the pizza sauce directly from her. So if you go way back before marketing, that was the first thing I ever did at the organization. And then after college and undergrad, and I spent some time professionally in Miami, I moved back to Atlanta and started with the brand team here.
Wow. So
Mhm.
that those early days and getting the on the ground sort of understanding of the product and where it all originated, like surely that has been critical in your how you show up today as a marketing leader. How much of a benefit does that create if you have the opportunity to be at a place for so long and understand different components and compartments of the business?
It's really several things. It's really multifaceted. I think one of the primary ways that it's really benefited me in terms of the work I do on behalf of the brand is, it's given me really great relationships throughout the years. We have a lot of very tenured team members here. Many of us, like you're hearing my history with the company, which is extensive. We have people that even work on my team directly that supersede that number of years. So being a part of the business for a while and having those really good relationships and working in different areas of the company, one, it definitely legitimizes your knowledge about how to properly run, even just the marketing functions of the company. But I've just built so many good relationships with the players here over the years that we depend on each other for our co-created success. So I think a lot of it is really just the people and how that's developed over time.
Yeah. So with so many different opportunities likely available to you outside of like is it leadership? Is it the culture? Is it what is it that gets you coming back there every day and you deciding to hang your hat there for
Yeah. In
majority of
Mellow
your career?
Mushroom.
Yeah.
I think it's a couple of things. I get asked a very similar question a lot when we're recruiting for the
Yeah.
organization and you're talking to potential candidates and they're saying, you've clearly been with the organization for a while, like what, and I can hear in talking to you that you really love what you do and you have a passion for it. And I think one of the great parts about the culture at Mellow Mushroom in this company in particular is that it's very much a medium-sized company, but because we are a nice, healthy, medium-sized company, and because the restaurant industry changes so rapidly, and because the Mellow Mushroom brand specifically is so distinct from the way casual dining chains typically operate, I find it a very compelling and
Yeah.
interesting challenge to work on. And because the culture of the company and the store environments and the marketing are so rooted in this high level of creativity and appreciation for artwork. For me personally, I studied painting and have an art degree in my undergrad, but then I actually went back years later, and got my MBA. So it scratches like the perfect itch of
Yeah.
right brain, left brain, and being able to use those, you know, skills as a creative, but also those analytical business skills. Just this brand in general is so ripe for that kind of thinking.
Yeah.
I just think it's a really challenging, great brand to work on. And in terms of the size of the organization and the culture, it is I'm very much evidence of this, but you see lots of other examples of this in the organization of people who have started, as general managers in stores, and now they are senior directors of training, or, people who have evolved so much in their time here. So the culture at our organization really rewards ingenuity and hard work. And because we are a medium-sized organization, as I like to call it, I think that's a good it's typically a good environment if the culture is there, where there's constantly new opportunities,
Yeah.
but you don't necessarily hire out for every new thing that the business is doing. Oftentimes you'll give that opportunity to someone internally who wants a stretch role, or who's showing that aptitude for wanting to do that, curiosity to do other things. So a lot of people, myself included, who have evolved here over time, it's really just been about raising your hand for more and being hungry for success. And this is a culture here that very much rewards that.
It sounds like the dream spot. I had never been to a Mellow Mushroom, obviously, from based on where I live, but I have a friend in Atlanta, and I mentioned the brand. He's like, "Oh, that's my spot."
Oh,
So,
awesome. I love to
and
hear that.
what I'm curious about, a couple things. One of them is now are there any corporately run stores? Are they all franchisee led, or what's the
We're
breakdown?
majority franchised. We do
Okay,
have some company owned locations, but we're 90+% franchised.
okay,
We're continuing to evolve all those channels. We want to invest in more on a company level, but we also have, very serious investment on the franchise level as well. But right now we are majority franchised.
okay. So, what I'm curious about based on that is, with such like a creative undertone and foundation and sort of this like blank canvas sort of feel that you've populated with all these different, not literal colors, but how do you maintain a balance between uniqueness and creativity and all this stuff, but also operational control and consistency and scalability, things that franchisee owner operators want when they're pursuing a franchise opportunity? How do you create that balance?
Well, that is the million-dollar question. So, so for us, it's a couple different things. I think if you look at the 50-year history, we've
Right.
definitely evolved our approach to this, especially as of late, and we think about future growth for the company. But for Mellow Mushroom, what we've done, especially as we embarked on a rebrand a couple
Okay.
years ago. It was the
Okay.
company's first ever rebrand. We launched it officially in 2022 and 23. But some of the changeover in terms of the elements that need some updating across the system, some of it is a more of a turning around a battleship approach, and then there were some changes that we kind of flipped on overnight. Um, but part of the development work that we did through the rebrand and our approach moving forward is very much a freedom within a framework approach.
Okay.
So based on the branding and the aspects of the brand that we know need to be really unique from location to location, those elements continue to shine, and we do that. For
Right.
example, Mellow Mushroom very much so celebrates and has real original artwork all throughout every single one of our restaurants.
Oh,
So, as opposed to many other brands that you see in casual dining,
standard. Yeah.
yeah, they have design packages, but I call it corporate rubber stamp. You can kind of tell that it's been heavily corporatized. You don't really get a sense, especially to the educated eye, if you're in the industry, you can walk into most casual dining restaurants and there's really no evidence of real working artists that participated in the design of that store.
Right.
For us, it's completely the opposite. And even in systematizing certain aspects for economies of scale or cost savings on tile, or just making sure we're providing the most comfortable furniture to guests. Like there's certain aspects of the store design and the experience that do benefit from some consistency, and we better understand that now. But then there are hero moments in the restaurant that are the big brand statements that we continue to invest in a very similar way that we did 50 years ago, in a really authentic way, and working with um, real up and coming
That's awesome.
artists who are spending 40, 50 hours at night doing a mural in store, before they open in the morning. So that was a part of the culture 50 years ago. It remains today. We believe it's, our relationships with artists are one of the most important parts of our
Yeah.
business. And they're a really important part of the history of the brand and of the brand forward. Um, so it's that freedom within a framework approach, but we also learn from the rebrand and from the guest research that was involved in that there are certain aspects that should be more consistent, and the guests want it to be consistent, and it provides a better brand experience. Like through the work that we did in the rebrand, we very clearly understood from that the logo and use of the brand marks needed to be less variable and needed to be more consistent. So we are in the process now of updating restaurant signage across the system so that it is consistent with our logo marks. Whereas, for many years before the restaurant environment was so digital, before restaurants became as complex as they are to manage today, we had different signs in all of our stores, and that
Yeah.
was, but consumer behavior has changed, expectations have changed, so we're evolving with those changes. So that's an example of something that's consistent, but we think will help uplift the brand versus things that should still be localized and really
Yeah.
special and
Well,
differentiated.
it's so smart. You can tell it's very thoughtful and intentional because it's so critical in a multi-location franchise system like this
Right,
that there is consistency, but also diversity and uniqueness and
right,
localization and the leveraging of local artists. It's like I think for a lot of multi-location brands, engaging with the community is like the thing you do at the very end once
right,
everything else is dialed in. But this is core to the operational,
right.
intent, which is amazing. And so, um, for you, you get a paycheck every couple weeks. What do you have to do in exchange for that? What's your mandate as you understand it? What
My
do you do
mandate.
there?
Oh my gosh. Well, first and foremost, I touch a lot of different parts of the business, which I'm sure you can tell, but first and foremost, my chief responsibility or job is the brand's reputation and helping to cultivate the experience of the brand by our guests, whether that's inside the four walls or outside the four walls in terms of our other ordering channels or platforms or the advertising that you may interact with. Um, so we think of, methodology wise on our team, we really think of the brand as a living, breathing organism, almost like a person. something like, if you go back to the 90s, like a Tamagotchi that needs to be fed in your pocket or something. But we think of the brand as something that needs constant cultivation, development, something that the right way to handle something today may look very different than it did a few years ago. So it's really adapting to this rapid change, and just on all of our platforms and the interactions of the brand, whether that's the in-store experience or the way we exist in the marketplace, just driving the best brand experience and brand reputation.
And so a big part of what you do is obviously the laying of the foundation from a strategy and the marketing function standpoint, but a big part of your job, especially based on the very unique size of your team, is
Mhm.
creating an environment for people to be empowered and to be the best version of themselves, to operate in their unique zone of genius. So what's been your approach in terms of not necessarily leading a function, but the people specifically within a function? What's your playbook on that? Creating this culture as such a big team.
I think, there's a couple for those that if you were to interview the team members that work with me, I think, and they were to ask you to describe me, I think most of them would say one of the primary qualities and sort of interactions that we like to drive across our team is warmth and respect, and leading by example. So I have great relationships with my team members, and truthfully, I focus on them as people and their success before I'm focused on anything else. Because especially once you get to the point in your career where you're doing a lot of people management, project management, program management, but you're spending less and less time being an individual contributor, actually authoring the work yourself. The more that you're focused on or have the responsibility, frankly, to lead people and teamwork and collaboration, the more that you realize your job is all about your relationships and setting them up for success.
There's a lot of different ways to resource a marketing function. There's the sort of hybrid, you have a couple core people internally and then you rely on agency partners. There's the totally lean and mean where you're relying exclusively on external partners. And then there's the fully in-house sort of agency style makeup, and it's
Do
the
both.
one less often used because it's so difficult. But you
Yeah.
guys are experiencing a ton of success with this fully in-house team. You have a graphic designer that's been there for 20 years, I think you
Yeah.
mentioned before.
Yeah.
Okay, you
Yeah.
got
Mhm.
the
I
Holy
can talk.
Grail. Yeah, to talk
Oh, go
about.
ahead. Sorry. Like we're saying the same thing at the same time. We do a little bit of both, to your point. We have our brand development team or marketing team internally. We have almost like our own in-house creative agency. We have designers in-house, project managers. We have subject matter experts for different areas of the business. We're actually in process right now of bringing on a chef onto the team full time. So I think that's another new thing that you're seeing in the industry a lot, is that marketing leaders are really stepping into culinary management roles. And a lot of that is really because the marketing team and the marketing leadership is so entrenched and in touch with what the consumer thinks and what the consumer is looking for and what your loyal guests are looking for. And so much of that sensory experience goes right back into menu and menu trends. So now really with that addition too, we're full service in terms of how we're able to support the brand from soup to nuts. In fact, the LTO that we are launching at the end of April, that LTO was designed and will be deployed 100% by internal resources. I actually just contracted today a few pieces of the advertising that we are going to source with an outside agency for some supplemental content. But other than that, it's 95% internal. And that's everything from working with our ops and our training team and some of the talent we have there on culinary development to, of course, all of the internal makeup when it comes to setting things up on our platforms and our infrastructure, then working with the internal team here on the advertising strategy, working with some freelancers, but doing all the photography and the videography in-house, to then developing all the graphic design and the marketing assets and getting everything kitted up to deliver local store marketing kits for franchisees. I mean, the whole swath of things that need to happen in order to bring something to market. I think there's a ton of value in working with creative agencies on different programs, and we continue to do that. But we do, we kind of tailor make how we're going to handle something based on the needs of the project. And if we think we have the chops internally to do this one best here, we do that. And then sometimes we do outsource some of the work. But I just think there's an incredible amount of pride. I feel so much pride and satisfaction in looking at the team and how well people have been developed, and just the great talent that we have here at the organization, where we even have the option to do something from start to finish completely internally, that I think is going to deliver an excellent LTO for the system.
Well, it's music to my ears because too often you see marketing as sort of
Mhm.
the afterthought, the isolated department, totally disconnected from the
Right.
operational heartbeat. But clearly, here, marketing is seen so much as a critical growth driver, so much so that marrying operations and marketing together and making it one holistic unit, because it's influenced by the trends on the street, or what your consumers are saying. This is beautiful, right? For me, marketing is the table that everyone should rally around, and you guys are an example of that. So
Right.
one of the main reasons I think why brands haven't been successful in building this fully in-house team, primarily in-house team, is because of retention. You get people that maybe it's their first job and then they graduate to becoming an A player, and when they do, they leave for the grass is greener on the other side reasons. So what is it about Mellow Mushroom that creates stickiness and mitigates risk against retention issues and churn?
I think, a lot of it is it's the organization's culture and leadership. Like I said, there's really just from a foundational standpoint, there's a lot said for just treating your partners with warmth and respect and care, and making sure that anyone who's working with me, reporting to me, whatever that is involved in, they know that I am authentically very invested in their success. Also being very direct with people. I make sure in development work for team members, yeah, we spend a lot of time focused on your project work and the things that you're involved in and your responsibilities. But I also make sure that we spend time, and I'm thinking about what's the next steps for this person in their career. How can I help them excel here? If someone is having some challenges, not just waiting until their annual review to tell them that, talking to them like a human, setting aside time to say to them, hey, I've noticed this, and this is happening. Can you talk to me about what's going on? These are the things that I see for you. This is what I want to happen. This is what you need for success. Is there something that I can do that can help you? Is there something that you're missing that you need? Is it something that you're going through that you want to talk to me about? Frankly, that's the human side of things too. So I think that when you lead by example and you're focused on making great relationships with the people that you work with, but also understanding, like with our group, I always say it's a team mentality. It's not a family. Family is very boundary crossing. Family is, unending loyalty despite treatment or relationships. We are very much, we operate like a high performance sports team. You have new players come on. You have people sometimes that leave for other opportunities. When they do leave for other opportunities, we're super happy for them and their success. We're here to facilitate and support each other's success. We have also a culture that's very much, if someone's working on something and it's outside your purview, but they need your support, it's not even a question. There would never be a conversation of, well, that's not my job, that's not my role, this and that. So I think having that mentality and leading by example. People, I spend more time. I tell people all the time, I'm like, I spend more time with you than I spend with my husband. So I want you guys to, every day may not be your favorite day. Some days you may, get feedback that you don't love. Sometimes you may have to hear straight truths that are not, you know, not something that you love, but it hopefully motivates you to improve and do better. But I think overall, people should feel happy and fulfilled where they're working. And if they don't feel that way, they're going to leave.
It's incredible. I think that true marketing leaders, the one that sort of represent the best version of the profession, understand that it's not about moving product, it's about the business is a platform and an opportunity to contribute to people's growth and their enjoyment and fulfillment of self and role, and an understanding, a deep understanding that by curating and creating and championing this scenario, you end up getting the best work and you end up getting the best end result. But we have to understand as marketing leaders, our job is to get the right people in the right seats and facilitate an environment of growth, which you're clearly a great example of. So thanks for playing the game that way, because this is the
Yeah.
exemplification we need. Let's dig into Elizabeth a little bit. We've talked a lot about, and I can see clearly where some of your superpowers are. But from your perspective, what is your superpower in terms of like, I'm so comfortable with this part of my game, talking about the sports analogy, that I rely on it so often, I go back to it. What do you feel is like your superpower as a marketing leader?
I think it's really my intuition and ability to read people. I'm like I said, you can tell from the conversation, I pride myself in being very connected, and I don't always get it right. But I have good instincts when something isn't working, or a person needs redirection, or they need extra support. So I don't always need, not everyone's comfortable always raising their hand and asking. So I can better tailor my support and guidance and leadership of the team, I think, based on sentiment and needs, and have a good sensibility, because there's different ebbs and flows, different times and seasons for what the overall kind of culture is in the group. And when I don't listen to my intuition and I ignore it, I always regret it. So I've learned that the hard way. I think on the flip side of that, I try to be very quick and transparent to acknowledge mistakes. And there's no cover up, there's no blame. So because of that, my team, hopefully they would say this independently. I believe that they would, that you create a certain amount of trust with people when they know, okay, if you make a mistake, if you screw something up, um, you're not going to throw someone under the bus. You, as the leader of the department, you're going to take ownership over that, even if in fact it was someone else's action, who's working with you. If you led the team in a direction that turns out is not correct, for one reason or another, then you're able to openly say that and admit that, and then move the team towards a better direction. I think a lot of times what you see, and I've experienced this in my own career, you see trust erode and relationships erode in leadership um, when people, cannot admit when they're wrong, or when you're, maybe unfairly characterized for a mistake or unfairly blamed. And people remember those things, and then that changes the dynamic of the relationship. So I think just coming to work, being your authentic self and leading with honesty and integrity. I mean, those, I guess, are very, I don't know if these are the like novel ideas that people are necessarily hungry for, but I think it's at its core, sometimes we forget them. And those are the basic principles that drive, strong relationships.
Why I think they are hungry for them. I think why this resonates is because you're taking terms that you would see in a textbook, but the difference here is that they're actually showing up in reality and practicality. And so it's cool when you can see this like real world example of a marriage between theoretical and actual or practical, which
Right.
is very obvious. So on the flip side of all this, Elizabeth, what are you willing to admit is like your Achilles heel as a marketing leader?
Oh my gosh. Achilles heel. Well, I don't know if I would describe it let's see if I would characterize this
Or maybe
exact.
something that you find yourself thinking about a lot in terms of an area that you're really curious about improving or finding different compartments of of how it shows up.
Yeah, and how it changes. I don't know if I would describe this as an Achilles heel, but I think understanding your knowledge gaps and making sure that you surround yourself with really good people that excel in those areas is also really important. Like taking the ego out of it. If you know, for example, in my career, I've spent limited time in operations. We do have some people who work and have worked in the marketing department, or I've seen, for example, there are other marketing leaders at organizations who have 10, 15 years experience in ops, so they would have a different Achilles heel. In my instance, I do not have decades of experience working directly in the store. So in looking at that as an Achilles heel and having like a really good pulse on what the day-to-day experiences of an operator, I would recognize that as something where I then go and say, okay, how do I fill that gap with my relationships, both professionally here with my colleagues that really do those things very well? Also, in making sure that I'm very connected to our franchisees and I'm listening to their needs and really trying to understand what the reality of their day to day is like. I think for marketing in particular, that also is very important because there's often the stereotype of marketers who are not really in touch with the realities of, in our case, operating a restaurant or whatever business that you're in. So I think making sure that you have a pulse on your own capabilities and surrounding yourself with really good talent in those areas that are not your number one area of expertise. I think that's really important.
Well, yeah, you come across as very much like instead of the experience operationally, you match that with increased empathy and pursuit of understanding to create the right platform to wheel and deal from and do your thing.
Right.
Elizabeth, outside of looking at like a KPI report or same store sales or something like that, how when you're driving home at the end of the day, is there anything that you rely on in terms of a gut feel as to whether or not you did a good job in your role that day or not? Is there anything that you rely on as a more qualitative felt indicator?
I think when you look at when I think about success and I look at how the team is being transformed and I think about the culture of the group, I take a lot of satisfaction at just looking at, okay, if we sat in, let's say, set aside sales, because you're talking about don't include in this conversation same store sales and some of the obvious metrics that anyone in my role or any marketer should be looking at to qualify success for their programs. When I look at how the team operates and I see the quality of the work just consistently getting better. And I see, team members in meetings raising hands, asking great questions that, a year ago they maybe wouldn't have thought to ask. Or I see other team members who are in junior roles feeling comfortable enough to raise their hand and say, I want to develop more in this area. And then they're given that opportunity. And I walk into a meeting and it's in some cases, maybe the first meeting that this person has ever led, and they're doing a fantastic job. That gives me such a sense of satisfaction and pride, and just like overall knowing that the team is in a positive direction because I can see those changes in the people, not just the work, but the people too. And those are like the small things that I get to just see on a, 5 minutes here, 30 minutes there, just in the day-to-day interactions and with how the group is changing.
You're just contributing so much to what I try to say on the soapbox when I have the opportunity, which is it's you keep defaulting to people and to team and to this idea where excuse me, you can stop one person, but you can't stop a team of people, right? And understanding that from a marketing leader standpoint, you're responsible for two things: being able to tell the vision in as many different parables and ways and super frequent, and putting the right people in the right seats and doing that thing. And so I just think that it's such a great spotlight being shined on how you're supposed to play this game. So I
Yeah.
love it.
Yeah.
Tell me about the Shroomies. Who won last year? What's the award? And how do you qualify?
Oh, the shroomies. Oh my God. This is so funny that this, of course, is like one little thing you can see in the background. So this is a funny example of something we did on our team. We actually had our social media manager wanted to, for our holiday outing as a department, I think that was 2 years ago, do the I think it's a spoof off of, if you are familiar with The Office. I believe it's The Office. Hopefully I don't screw this up and then
No,
she listens.
totally. I thought it was from The Office, so
Like
yeah.
the is it the Dundies, I
The
think.
Dundies. Yeah.
Yeah. So she wanted to do, she worked with, it was actually two individuals on the team, and they collaborated together and they did Shroomy Awards for everyone on the team. So I won the Sorry Not Sorry Award for outstanding achievement and always speaking her truth.
Hey,
So
that's awesome. Um, this is really important to me and to a big chunk of our audience. You've been in a situation recently where you're leading the marketing function in the team, but you also have created life 10 months ago. And can talk to me a little bit about just how you did that and navigated kind of balancing the responsibilities, taking time to just focus on family, but then coming back in and jumping back on the moving car. Like, I don't know how you can do
yeah.
that, but please share your story there.
Yeah, it's definitely been a journey. And I think everyone who's, I'm a first time mom. I have a 10-month-old, almost 10-month-old son. Um, I think probably a lot of women would say the same thing. I hear a lot of the same things when I talk to other women, that you don't really know what it's going to be like or feel like completely. You kind of hear the anecdotes like, oh, it's going to be the best thing that's ever happened to you. It's going to be a kind of love that you've never felt before. It's like nothing else. And yeah, all the stereotypes, at least in my experience, all the stereotypes are true. I think the one that is the most true of everything, for me, was that you're one person your whole life, and then the second that your first child is born, you're immediately transformed into a different person. It's like you've shed a certain skin and now you're a different kind of butterfly, and your mentality is different, your thought process is different. um I think you gain so much from the experience that even directly ties into your work and your professional life. It's changed me as a leader so much. It's changed me as a friend, as a family member. I feel like a more just enriched person, that there's just a whole other depth to life that I love experiencing now. I even feel like in the work for marketing that I really have a better connection to a huge part of our demographic, because we serve a lot of families. So I feel like it's even given me um, a more just really involved understanding of so many of our guests, thinking of it that way. But I think that a lot of the tropes about becoming a new mom um, are totally misrepresented in the workplace. Like you hear a lot about, I received even many comments myself, just like when you're pregnant, everyone talks to you about being pregnant. You're a walking billboard for pregnancy. So that is all when you are pregnant, and that comes with its own challenges, right? But when you are visibly pregnant to the point where people are comfortable enough, like, okay, I know I'm not going to get this wrong. She's definitely having a baby, because you see a lot of that in sort of the middle period where people are not really sure, which I totally understand the hesitancy with that. But you talk about it so much, and then you have your baby. In my case, I had a C-section because my son was breech, and was like that the whole pregnancy, so I had no option. And I was on maternity leave for 2 months, and then I came back, and there's definitely tremendous physical challenges that are totally downplayed when it comes to just the process of birth, recovering from birth. Are you breastfeeding? How do you manage breastfeeding? And then also, coming to an office environment, how do you navigate around all of that? But I think so many people assume that someone's going to become a mother and now they're all of a sudden going to be really disconnected from whatever they're doing or very distracted. Um, and all the stereotypes kind of around that, like they're just no longer going to be as good of an employee. Every woman has the sense of self-doubt of, is this going to hurt my career? Am I going to recover from this? And everyone has a unique experience, but I found that as a person, I just feel so much more empowered, so much more sophisticated in my thinking. I feel much more productive when it comes to my time management. I find I am a much more patient person. On so many levels, you're patient because you now understand like what true difficulty is and certain things being outside of your control, whether it's, a baby that doesn't sleep very well or they can't talk, so they have something wrong, and you have to kind of like figure it out just based on cues or quote, do your best, while maintaining your composure. So I find that mothers are they're such powerful people. I feel really lucky to be kind of in the club, if you will, at this point. And if anything, it's only enhanced my career and my relationships overall.
I love it. I love that perspective. It's like if I could do that thing, which is kind of unexplainable, split
Mhm.
testing a campaign is really not a big deal,
Right.
right?
Right, exactly.
And
You're like, listen, I can do this because now I'm doing things on 2 hours of sleep. You can, for all the women out there, if you've never had kids, you can run on a lot less sleep than you believe you can, and you can make it work for a period of time. It's not forever.
I love that. Right now, it seems like things are going very well. What is one or two big challenges that faces the brand today that you and your team are sort of excited about rallying around and swarming to solve? Like, what's the thing that keeps you guys sort of with one eye open at night?
Up at night. I think, in the casual dining space, we're not alone in that everyone is very focused on transactions and transaction count right now because we saw a lot of the challenges that entered the marketplace in COVID, and of course the rising inflation costs, and owning a restaurant and managing a restaurant is so much more of a complex activity today than it was 5-10 years ago. That the industry had just experienced so much rapid change in the last few years. So I think one of the most unique challenges that we're spending a lot of time thinking about is value and the concept of value, and how it's become so much more than like just discounting an existing item. So how do you create food news, compelling value in the minds of consumers, but also as the franchisor, it's our responsibility to create new items and new offerings that are, operationally items that can be executed very well at the store level so that we don't increase the complexities of the business. So when it comes to thinking about menu development and how we should approach changes to our offering, there's so many different interests at play. So you have to really be you have to have a really tight pulse on the consumer, particularly your younger audience, and what they're looking for in terms of the evolution of your brand. But you also have to have a really strong pulse on the operations at the store level, and what you need to do to make the business thrive. So for us, we're very excited about and thinking a lot about the development of the menu, working on new products on the pipeline, particularly some shareable offerings, some things that are new and exciting, but at really optimal price points to help drive trial for the brand. And I think a lot of the development of those menu items will be directly connected to our guests and our consumer and what we know about brand marketing today.
Yeah, well, I think that your guys' approach with this sort of end-to-end
Mhm.
marketing touching every part of the customer value journey from product to when they leave is probably positioning you really well to handle the uncertainty of the market and the industry and changing consumer behavior. It's
Right,
this ability to holistically weave it through the whole journey, which
right.
I love. Elizabeth, I could do this for 2 more hours. Leave us with this. Let's pretend somebody is a marketing coordinator or a manager, and they come into your office, and they basically say, "Hey, listen, I want to be a CMO one day or a vice president of marketing. What can I be thinking about and doing today to start to lay the tracks for that to become a reality?" What might you share to them?
I think, well, a couple things, but I think when it comes to the kind of person you need to be, or I think what you're asking me is, what sort of qualities should that person focus on having to help drive their own
That
success?
that and what can I do today in my current accountability set and roles, knowing that, the jump from a coordinator to CMO is going to take both time and accomplishment. And what can I be doing today to start paving the path towards that being a reality?
So my answer to that is kind of both a characteristic and then an action as a result of that. I think the number one thing that someone can do to drive their own success is be curious. Be curious in the workplace, ask a lot of questions, be really involved in your industry. Some examples of that I talk to my younger team members in particular about all the time, but really everyone is um, the company cannot, no matter how sophisticated an organization, even one bigger than Mellow Mushroom, the company can only bestow certain aspects of development on you. A lot of people's development and success, no matter the size of the business or the opportunities at hand, is self-created. And at its core, that evolves from being a really curious person, someone who asks a lot of questions. Like I tell the team, and I foster this too, ask a lot of questions. Ask questions about things outside of your direct purview. Listen to podcasts about your industry. Know what other leaders are saying. Be really knowledgeable and involved in the work overall. Um, Beyond just that, be very familiar and well versed in the operating costs of the program that you either lead or largely contribute to. I think that's one of the things that helped me most in my career, and that is one of the gaps that you also see with younger team members who are just starting out. Is they're like, well, I'm not very senior, I'm lower on the totem pole, it's the budget for this is not my business, or they don't feel comfortable asking about certain associated costs of a program. And when you really sit down and lay it out, let's say you're responsible for success metrics on a promotion for a certain email. In order to really set benchmarks for success, we also have to all well understand the operational costs that went into executing that program. So this is from the leadership side and from the team member side. If you're talking to someone very junior, as a leader, it's my responsibility to have a certain amount of transparency and know that their development requires them to understand some of these facts. On the flip side, if you're a junior team member looking for that development, it's the best thing that you can do for yourself is have a much more broad, comprehensive understanding of the business that you're in, even if you don't come with that background experience. By being curious and asking those questions, you will learn that knowledge over time. It will grant you larger opportunities, because the path to management and the path to leadership isn't knowing everything. The path to management is really being able to make the right decisions. When you're truly managing something, when I have someone that I've entrusted to go from coordinator to manager, the primary reason for that is because they now have an elevated role in operating whatever program that is, and they can make many of the critical decisions around that program for themselves without having to come to me directly every time. So the ability to make those decisions directly comes from those increased reps in having the business knowledge and the understanding more broadly to be able to make those informed choices.
When's the book coming out, Elizabeth?
I don't
No,
know. I don't know if we're there yet. Someday.
no. To be totally honest with you, I think you're one of my favorite marketing leaders, because of so many different reasons. One of them, just recently, you said, is understanding, like, I think most junior level marketers see their role as being a part of a cost center, as compared to understanding that their role is woven into an area of investment. So understanding the economics behind the marketing function is that puts you in a different camp, doesn't it? Understanding that it's not just deliverables and tactics and colors and ad campaigns, but it's a critical function of the business. And so the economics so for that reason and many more, Elizabeth, I love the way you're playing the game, and I appreciate you sharing, a picture of how you're playing that, because it adds so much value and elevates this profession. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's not often that you get to have this type of conversation. I really enjoyed it a lot.
Awesome. Everyone, my guest, Elizabeth Brasch.